Will switch it on. Let me also remind you that colleagues can participate remotely in accordance with the procedures set forth by the Committee on the Rules of Procedure. That was it. The agenda for today includes the informal hearing of the Ambassador of the Republic of Cyprus, Yiorgos Christofides, on the priorities of the Cyprus Presidency of the Council of the European Union from January to June 2026. Also, on behalf of my colleague Paolo Fomentini, Deputy Chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and my colleagues who are present and connected remotely, I welcome and thank the Ambassador Christofides for their willingness to take part in our business today. The Mr. Ambassador is accompanied by Councillor Kyprianis Stavrinaki. Good morning and welcome. And the Deputy Head of Mission, as well as Second Secretary. I am wrong. MP Vigna has just said. So we have the Councillor Kyprianis Stavrinaki, the Deputy Head of Mission, and Christos Liperis, Second Secretary, and another representative from the press office. I apologize, that Chair Giulio Vigna says. Mr. Ambassador, there's much to talk about today. Every time a new semester starts, especially when the rotating presidency is held by a Mediterranean country, we cannot be but very happy because there are strong bonds that unite us. There are so many elements in our common denominator. Let me remind you that one of our remits is regulatory simplification, subsidiarity, reaching out to member states. In the previous Parliament of the European Union, the EU has produced 75% of regulations and only 15% of directives. And it is a matter of fact that this is an unacceptable reduction of power and prerogatives of member states and parliaments. Then we will dwell upon energy autonomy and the key role of Cyprus in the IMEC corridor project. As we are all aware, your priorities, or at least your hot issues, include the strengthening of the social pillar. For too long, the EU has deemed the social pillar more important than the environmental one. And we have been striving to do so, but we are trying to reverse this trend now. In other words, the rights of workers and businesses in Europe have to acquire a key role. We want to pursue the green transition. Nevertheless, each environmental policy must also be socially sustainable. Your priorities also include EU security. And for us, EU security also means the security of the southern flank, not just the eastern flank. And we also want to reach out to Northern Europe friends. The northern flank is also of the essence. All of these countries chipped in. They made their part. But the southern flank must be taken on board, and the funds of the EU must also be allocated and geared towards the south, the fight against illegal migration, the fight against smugglers and traffickers in human beings. As I said, when a Mediterranean country takes up the presidency of the EU, we cannot be but happy and welcome him. We have high hopes for the future because there is a common denominator that unites us, our common history, our common culture, our common outlook and stance on the world, our family values and societal values. So, my dear Ambassador and dear friends from the Cyprus Embassy, I would like to warmly welcome you to the Chamber of Deputies. And over to you, Mr. Ambassador. But first, I would like to give the floor to Paolo Formentini, Deputy Chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, for his introductory remarks. Thank you very much, Chair Giulio Vigna. Let me also thank Ambassador Christofides for being here. I won't take up too much of your time. Let me remind you that the Cyprus presidency is indeed of the essence. Not only does it occur in unhinged times for the Mediterranean Sea, but also because of long-standing relations between Cyprus and Italy. Cyprus has a stabilizing role in a contested area, not only in the light of the situation in the Middle East, but also the Aegean Sea, in light of the growing assertiveness of Turkey. And then we are all aware of the importance of Cyprus in terms of energy sources and supply. We heard the ambassador in the past on the IceMed project, and I myself was a promoter of a resolution on the matter in the past. We want an ever-increasing integration of the Mediterranean Sea, and therefore Cyprus is all the more key in this regard. As Chair Giulio Vigna said, the IMEC corridor comes in handy and as an essential tool for our countries. Let me remind you that in November 2025, the ambassador also participated in the interparliamentary meeting on the IMEC corridor that I co-chair together with MP Giordano. Relations between Italy and Cyprus are strategic, also because we want to reinforce an axis of like-minded democratic countries operating in a coordinated manner in the Western and Southern Mediterranean. And now over to Mr. Ambassador for his speech. Over to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Signor Presidente della Commissione.
Thank you very much, Chair of the EU Policy, Mr. Chair Giulio Vigna, Mr. Deputy Chair of the Foreign Affairs of the Chamber of Deputies, honorable MPs and members of the committee. It is truly an honor to participate in a hearing of the Chamber of Deputies to present the priorities of the Cyprus presidency of the EU Council. Your invitation indeed is a strong signal of national parliament's involvement on the priorities of our union. The EU integration does not only happen in Brussels, but it also occurs through the democratic checks and balances by our own citizens. Dear chairs and MPs, Cyprus has, from the 1st of January 2026, is holding the presidency of the EU. We will continue the program of the trio, but we will also bring our own perspective in this. And let me just make an observation on what you said before, Mr. Chair. Our perspective is in one of a kind, if you want, and this is based on the fact that we are a member state, a southern member state of the EU, and for us, the southern stance must be part and parcel of our presidency priorities, and we are so very happy to underline that Italy's stance is similar to ours, and we're happy that your government too supports this dimension. We have been rehearsing for this role with a humble mind, and we strongly believe in the EU project. We are ready to negotiate as genuine mediators. And however small our country is ready. We want to find compromise ground to advance the EU agenda. We are on the southernmost frontier of the EU, and therefore we have a hands-on experience on what it means to lack security. However, Cyprus also is also resilient, and Cyprus know what it means to enjoy EU cooperation. We are also a fully fledged member of the Eastern Mediterranean. As a country, we promote regional cooperation and act as facilitator of security, and we act as a bridge between Europe and the Middle East. And we want to be part of the solution at regional and national level. Dear co-chairs, our Presidency comes at a pivotal time. Europe stands at a crossroads. War has come back to our continent. We cannot underestimate all of these challenges, not to mention migration, technological progress. All of this is reshaping our societies, and we require a decisive and credible and united action. We need a more autonomous and open union. This is indeed the most important goal of our presidency. As the President of the EU Council has stated, and that's also shown by what has happened in this last few days, the Cyprus' role in the EU presidency couldn't be more timely. Autonomy, independence in the EU is not an empty slogan. Indeed, is a sine qua non condition for a further EU integration. And we can do this through partnerships. An autonomous union is a union that is able to cooperate with partners, but also to act independently. A secure and competitive union is also one that is truly anchored to its values, including the democratic role exercised by national parliaments. Our working program rests on 5 interconnected pillars, and each of these pillars contains sub-pillars and sub-goals we will be discussing in the next few months. I will only dwell upon a limited number of pillars that are relevant to the Rome context. Let us begin with the autonomy, security, and preparedness. In order to protect our citizens, we have to reinforce our capacity to act independently without increasing our dependency. Security is multi-dimensional, and therefore we need a 360-degree scope. The ongoing Russian war of aggression against Ukraine demonstrates that we need to be more prepared. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine has demonstrated the need to reinforce the security architecture in the EU, and as a consequence, the Cyprus presidency will support Ukraine and will continue to support the country in all areas for a just peace that is in line with the EU Charter while respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. It could not be otherwise. We know very well what it means to be integrated. Ukraine has shown yet another fundamental truth, and an autonomous union must be able to protect its citizens, its borders, its interests, and ultimately its very values. The use of force cannot redesign and redraw borders in Europe. If this principle fades away, then everything else will fade away. And this is why we have to come up with a stronger security architecture in Europe. And as my president in Strasbourg has said, We stand in solidarity with Ukraine and Greenland. Nevertheless, today, security has more than one dimension, and it's truly interconnected. And this is why we will be promoting a global approach, and comprehensive approach, including defensive preparedness, military mobility, security, which is also pivotal for Italy, especially economic security, management of migration flows, that is yet another common issue, and then preparedness to crisis. In this regard, we will promote the implementation of the White Paper on European defense and other dossiers that are being examined in Brussels. We will be reinforcing the EU-NATO cooperation. We're not member of the NATO alliance, but this collaboration is nonetheless pivotal. We have to protect our democracies for foreign interferences, hybrid threats, and any threats to media freedom. Let me dwell upon the issue of migration, which is indeed pivotal both for Cyprus and Italy. We act on the front line in this, and therefore we have to manage migration flows appropriately. Cyprus will be striving for a balanced and comprehensive approach to migration, and we want to strike a balance between internal and external factors, and we want to face the root causes of migration, and we also want to implement the European Pact on Asylum and the Return Directive. Finally, security and resilience also depend on how and when we manage our critical resources. Hybrid security is becoming pivotal for Europe. Adaptation to climate change and preparedness to crisis, well, these are things that we know way too well, and this is why we will come up with a strategy for hybrid resilience. And then autonomy through competitiveness. This is very, very important. Chair Vigna, you mentioned this in your introductory remarks. We believe that a more competitive Europe can be a more independent Europe in a world where security and defense go hand in hand. Our supply chains are under pressure, and we have to come up with a solution in this regard. We will reinforce the competitiveness of Europe, and we will try and streamline legislation in a balanced way, and we will make Europe swifter and smarter, especially for SMEs that are the backbone of our economies. This is how we will strive to conclude negotiations on simplification, legislative simplification dossiers. Let me publicly thank the Italian government and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because an Italian expert from the competent ministry joined the presidency in Brussels, and now this person chairs one of the key working group on one of the key simplification packages. Simplification of the single market is yet another priority in our agenda. We will prioritize modernization of our businesses, we will reinforce innovation, and we will advance green and digital transitions. At the same time, we will reinforce energy and digital independence through the diversification of suppliers, accessibility of prices and modern infrastructures, and strong interconnections. So this is not just an economic, but also a strategic imperative. Our second pillar is a union open to the world. We have to reach out to the external world, and this is how we will make ourselves stronger, and this is how the EU will be able to shape a global relations of power. Ukraine, Moldova, Western Balkans, and Turkey, they are all pieces of this jigsaw. This is the enlargement policy is the single most important strategic tool of this union. We have to rest on peace and stability. Our presidency will promote a credible enlargement agenda, and we will provide tangible benefits, and at the same time we will try and abide by rule of law, fight against corruption and international law. Now I will be moving to yet another era where our presidency is very active. We truly believe that our relations with the southern neighbors are indeed pivotal. The new pact for the Mediterranean provides a vital framework, and we will be promoting its goals and flagship initiatives, as well as the complementarity with other initiatives such as IMAC, and we will tap into the unique relations between Cyprus and the Middle East and India. During the informal European Council in April, the heads of states that participate in the pact will be invited to join preparatory works on the pact. We will also promote an open trade policy for the EU, and we will reinforce the existing economic relations. We will finalize some free trade agreements with partners such as the United Arab Emirates and India. A union that is open to the world is also one that is able to effectively respond to crisis. We will strive to reinforce the EU's capacity to respond swiftly to crisis, and we will tap into existing synergies and tap into Cyprus' experience as a regional hub and provider of humanitarian aid. We want to make sure that we leave no one behind. Ultimately, EU's autonomy rests on trust by EU citizens, and we want to reinforce the rule of law and social cohesion, and we want to respond to the concerns of our citizens. Against this backdrop, social housing is of the essence, and this has become the single most important social challenges of our time, and I think the same can be said for Italy. We will prioritize the implementation of the EU plan for accessible social housing, and we will respect the subsidiarity principle and the national competencies. And this is where national parliaments can play a pivotal role. Young people must be at the heart of our policies, and we will dwell upon the fight against childhood poverty, and we will make sure there's a high-level access to childhood education. Let's move on to the fifth pillar of the Cyprus presidency priorities,
which is a long-term balance for an autonomous union. Our strategic ambitions requires resources. Next, multi-annual financial framework is where reality meets ideas, and the union's strategic timeline is the instrument through which we can translate words into deeds. The EU's capacity to reduce its critical dependencies and respond swiftly and independently to all security threats while welcoming future enlargement processes. All of this must be at the center of the long-term process without overlooking traditional and important policies such as cohesion and the common agricultural policy. During our presidency, Cyprus will work on putting forward a mature negotiating process by June 2026. We are ready to engage transparently with all partners in order to provide an ambitious framework for the future of the Union. Dear Chairman, dear honorable members, the success of our presidency will be measured through deeds, through facts. We will do our best. But when you make programs, of course, success of initiatives are measured through deeds. Other presidencies of the Union went through something similar in the past. When countries drafted their programs, other people may smile because, of course, we may always come across unforeseen events. Yet we have to stick to our program. So Cyprus will work with determination on increasing the Union's autonomy Hopefully, this will respond to unforeseen events and challenges. We believe that this is the best path towards a more prosperous and united and independent Europe. The success of the Cyprus presidency will also be measured through our capacity to act together. National parliaments are indispensable partners to guarantee trust and accountability. All of these are values without which no union can actually be autonomous and strong. Europe's unity is our strength. Together, we must translate this unity into action. So Cyprus will work with determination to make sure that the Union is resilient and capable of responding to the challenges and meeting people's expectations. So this is the most credible path towards a united, safer and prosperous Europe. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am ready to reply to answers, if any. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We already have a request. Honorable De Monte from the Forza Italia group. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your briefing. We know that these are very important years for the EU. So facing or touching on all these issues is also important to us, you as one of the founding members of the EU. I will touch upon 3 of the 5 priorities that you have raised. 1, competitiveness. There's no doubt that much is being done to simplify, including with some steps backwards when it comes to some ambitious projects or goals when it comes to the Green Deal. However, I still believe that little is being done to strengthen the unified market, because we must reinforce, first and foremost, internal demand and the unified market. Also, if we take into account what has recently happened with the Mercosur, you said that the market must open up, so everything keeps changing. Also, at the global level, if a market doesn't develop, there will also be someone else that will chip in or step in. But what we are seeing as priorities mainly relies on finance and credit. In your view, what can be done to strengthen demand, to strengthen the internal European market, and to strengthen consumption? As I mentioned Mercosur, I also have to mention the IMEC project. There's going to be the next round of the EU-India agreement, which is something very important as well. So the first question is, how can we strengthen the internal market? The second question is has to do with the opening up to the world. If we talk about the Western Balkans, you talked about merit. That's true, but we shouldn't forget that the Western Balkans are a region with some thorny or delicate dynamics. So if we expediting some negotiations while leaving some people behind may risk leaving this region behind, especially given the fact that this region is trying to join the EU. Hopefully this will happen as quickly as possible. Finally, the the multi-annual financial framework. 2027 will be the year of legislative acts. You know that a pivotal issue is the cohesion fund and the unified fund. Many states have actually raised some problems or objections. What is your view over this issue? Because this is an issue that will have to be negotiated over with a great deal of attention. Thank you. Over to MP Amendola from the Democratic Party. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. First, I would like to point out that we would have liked to have this meeting on a more comfortable day, so to say, at a more comfortable time, in order to ensure as many participants as possible. I would like to join my colleague in raising the 5 pillars. First of all, I mean, not the first pillar, but first subject matter, opening up to the world. You said, Mr. Ambassador, or you talked about the free trade agreement with India and other countries. However, another pivotal issue is Mercosur, because if an emergency procedure hadn't been accepted at the Court of Justice, we would expect a ruling over the next 12 to 15 years. And yet you underlined that these trade agreements are important also from a geopolitical point of view. We live in turbulent times, so these agreements also represent some sort of diplomatic power. So I would like to ask you about your impressions concerning the Mercosur issue. The Commission, the European Commission, may go along this path, or that's what we hear. If we followed a normal path, the agreement would be postponed 12 to 15 months. So how do you see this issue? When it comes to competitiveness, I agree with my colleague and Honourable MP Eugenio Villa. I agree, we need to simplify all those procedures that do not keep abreast with the swift decisions we have to take. But in addition to simplification, we have to talk about content, because the Draghi plan on competitiveness, which everyone believes is wonderful, however, its results are yet to be achieved, especially when it comes to changing the rules of the unified market. This would pave the way for a quantitative and qualitative growth of Europe's financial and economic growth. So I would like your assessment on this. Third issue my third question has to deal with the multi-annual financial framework. You will be talking about this unified fund. I don't think this fund is actually necessary. However, we are still talking about a very little, very small amounts, 1%, which is not in line with the percentages that we see elsewhere in the world. Also, when we talk about Ukraine, we need to resort to Eurobonds. I know that diplomacy tends to say we will do all we can, but even if we did do all we can and reached 1.1, 1.2% of EU GDP, and yet this is completely unachievable, especially if we want to make European industry competitive, if we want to invest in research and development, if we want to be economically independent. Well, I think if we want to achieve all of this, all of these objectives, they won't be achieved through the multi-annual financial framework. Cyprus, for instance, is inclined to use Eurobonds to finance common European assets. I'm not talking about a new next generation EU plan, especially given the fact that most European countries are actually objecting to it. However, on some issues, we may set up new funds in which we could invest, like the one we did when it comes to defense and Ukraine. I wish you all the best when it comes to the multi-annual financial framework. However, I think that this won't lead to any tangible results. Let me also add that your country's presidency will also bring to the fore once again the issue of internal borders, the borders within Cyprus. the issue that was raised in the issue that actually exceeded UN fora. I hope that thanks to your country's presidency, we will be able to come up with a solution, a peaceful solution when it comes to borders. Thank you. Over to MP Della Vedova from the mixed group. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I join my colleagues in wishing my best by wishing all success to Cyprus for its presidency. Once again, I'd like to join my colleague Amendola in saying that, in my view, it would be useful to delve into the possibility of having common European debts or common European borrowing. And we should also delve into the possible results of this borrowing in terms of Euro-safe assets, like Mr. Draghi said, but also in terms of Europe's self-defense in light of, or in case the United States keeps behaving like it is at the moment, in other words, showing hostility towards the European Union, if not fully fledged economic aggression. Over the last few days, we heard a lot about the fact that common European borrowing or common European debt couldn't be covered through a 1% ratio to European GDP. However, common European borrowing would reinforce the euro, and it would help us deal with the United States, because it would attract safe investments and it wouldn't collide with the dollar. It would just be an alternative. It was enough to mention in Davos that the Europeans could demobilize the current investment on a US Treasury and other US financial investments. This was enough to prompt Bassett, who said, well, hang on for a minute, let's think it over for a moment. This happened in Davos. So my question is, if some efforts can be done or can be made to achieve some results over the next 6 months, but actually to speak or to deal with or to delve into issuing or Eurobonds, or also strengthening the strength and the resilience of Europe in the face of the United States and the way it is behaving. Thank you. We have with us Chairwoman Gardini, the chairwoman of the Italian delegation to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. Mr. Ambassador, I would also like to mention a multi-annual financial framework. In particular, our farmers are worried about this PAC reform, and I would like to underscore, when it comes to simplification, the importance of subsidiarity. In other words, giving more decision-making and legislative room, or giving back more legislative and decision-making room to European parliaments, to national parliaments, especially in the light of this increasing decision-making role that has been played by the European Parliament. This, from a technical point of view, may translate into issuing further national laws and issuing fewer EU regulations, fewer delegated acts from the European Commission. In this framework, I would like to inform you, your embassy and your staff, that when it comes to the Mediterranean Pact, in my quality as President of Chairman of the EU Policies Committee, this morning I have signed a call that I received from France's National Assembly and the Summit, so that national parliaments are involved to a larger extent in the decision-making process over the Mediterranean Pact. Italy would like to ask you to address or to talk to our counterparts in Cyprus Parliament, so that they also sign this call that we received from France. Please, Mr. Ambassador, over to you. Thank you. I do not dare answer all these questions in Italian, so let me shift into English. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Ambassador, for speaking in Italian. Well, as far as I read, if I read, it's better for me to speak Italian, but now I would like to reply in English. But thank you anyway, Mr. Ambassador, for speaking in Italian.
Questions which are very, very pertinent, in my opinion. And I think just not as a disclaimer about anything, especially the questions by Honorable Amendola, but we have to be, I'm not afraid to be diplomatic, but is it recorded? È ricordato questo? No? But yes, but non c'è problema, non c'è problema. But I want to be absolutely clear. The presidency, while we are very glad to hold this very responsible role, the presidency has a particular, let's say, direction in the discussions, but it doesn't have the authority to take the whole European Union towards, for example, what Honorable Amendola mentioned about the MFF and the joint debt, let's say, of the European Union. But at the same time, I don't want to avoid the question because it's really very important. I start first with the simplification. We start from there. It's a very big priority. I consider it personally, and I think even my government considers it a success that we are discussing everything we just said before. The overregulation in Brussels, the discussions. Sometimes I asked if this is recorded because I want to say something. We are talking now in Brussels major, very big, heavy omnibus resolutions for simplificazione. No? Do you know what is the joke going around? That in these discussions we need an omnibus resolution to simplify the proposals by the Commission.
Yes.
È vero?
Yeah.
Everybody is discussing that it's like there are some regulations. We are trying to reload all this burden that is a burden to the medium and small size enterprises, first of all, and for the citizens of the European Union. We have to do it. It's a big success that we are doing that now. And we have to say also that credit should go also to ex-Prime Minister Draghi and all those that have worked for raising this awareness about the need to have a competitiveness based on simplification. That's the first. Mercosur, we connected to, and I will respond also to Mr. Amendola's question. We have done everything we could. It was the first decision taken under the Cyprus presidency, the adoption at the Council. It was the first, literally. We knew about the disagreements, not only by member states, and we found the qualified majority talking to everybody, all the partners. We knew also how strongly some political parties in separate big member states also of the European Union felt about this. It's not in our hands anymore, given that this issue has been referred to the Court of Justice. But of course, we will do everything possible to, if this returns, to put it into effect. My government considers that, as we consider also the agreement with India. I think Honorable Amendola is right to say that forms an integral part of what we believe that Europe aperta al mondo means. These markets are very important. And what we are experiencing now with the tariffs everywhere, I think these markets are very important for the European Union. It's small or big, one can judge. We can have this debate forever, but it is certainly something that adds to the power of the European Union, in our opinion. I pass to the Balcani Occidentali, that the Western Balkans that we said you have asked before. I just want to assure you, Honorable, that we will have a very merit-based approach towards all the member states. We have an advantage in this respect. We are a new member state, 22 years since we joined. I still remember, and all my colleagues, let's say, in the foreign ministry, in all the services in Cyprus, they remember when we joined. It was a very difficult process that you have to do as a candidate country, and everybody has to do it. We cannot really leave one behind and we promote the other without seeing the actual results in all the measures they take. We had to do that, and it's a very painful procedure. But the European Union has to remain not strict in a sense of, nasty, how should I describe it, towards one candidate or another. We have to be fair with everybody. And there is a merit-based approach towards all the candidate countries that we have to follow. There are really, especially for the Western Balkans now, there is a window of opportunity to push for some in terms of procedures, and we will do that. I think, for example, and this is very important for us, if we can manage to form the accession treaty drafting group at the Brussels level for Montenegro. That would be very important. There are some voices, some parties of ours that they wouldn't go that far at this point. That is not the time. We really believe that Montenegro has to move forward because they are ready. We cannot really deny something. They are ready. They have finished the negotiations. We have to start the drafting of the accession treaty. And that's what at least our intention is to do during these 6 months. The same with Albania, of course, there has been a lot of progress during the last 6 months under the Danish presidency. We will continue with the same pace. And we will have this fair approach to everybody. I don't want to take much of your time, but I will try to connect some of the questions. I replied to the first question by Mr. Amendola. Simplification, I said about the Draghi report. the budget, something I want to comment on the budget, about the size of the budget, the 1.1 or 0 or whatever. You know much better, you were ex-minister, much better than me, I think, that it's not either Cyprus or Malta or any other small country, not even one big country can decide the size of that. I just want to comment, though, that we are in this situation now that I don't know if it's good or bad, but when you had the countries that opposed any increase of the budget in the past, they are the ones now that are pushing because they would like to include the security element and the defense of the European Union in the budget. And we have created the tools anyway, and we will continue, for example, for Ukraine. But at the same time, we cannot forget the traditional policies of the European Union that are very close to our hearts. Countries of the South, cohesion, the CAP. These are very important. And if I may say something on a personal note also on these policies that we have to really safeguard, these are the policies of the European Union that have an effect on how the average European citizen sees the European Union. Do we really need to continue having citizens in our member states thinking that in Brussels they are paid thousands of euros every year just to make regulations, not, and with the mind always only on defense, or that they can affect with the same budget or even bigger, but distributed in many other policies like the traditional ones that are very important for Italy and Cyprus and in the south and many other countries. This is my personal note that maybe you can agree or not, but it's really, it's not a paradox per se, but the same countries that before they were very prudent in how much we spend, how big is it's the ones now they are pushing, but they are also putting some conditions for the direction of this budget. If it's going to be increased, that it should go in one direction. We do not want that, at least as Cyprus. We will manage the discussions, but that increase, whatever increase of the budget will be, we have to safeguard the traditional policies of the European Union that keep the Union united and relevant to the citizens. I think with this we covered the budget issue. I just want to go back to a question that was about open to the world and a bit more geopolitical. Maybe I can connect it also to all the candidate countries. I don't know if I mentioned before Turkey, but since Mr. Amendola mentioned something which is not accurate actually, if I think my Italian is correct, confini, non ci sono confini in Cipro. There is yeah, non confini come it's the green line, which is not. Yes, after the occupation. Thank you. No, but I wanted very much to say and underline here that, for example, Turkey is a candidate country. Still, nobody is discussing it. Of course, it's not convenient anymore. They have not progressed at all. We don't, not even for Turkey, we will not have any position, reluctant towards their rapprochement or whatever they would like to have with the European Union. Because we are one of the countries that they see the European Union the only force that can really help for the solution of the Cyprus problem. Especially with developments we had in Cyprus, with a new leader in the Turkish Cypriot community that rejected, now he's trying to fall in line and not to be really too confrontational with Erdogan. At least he has agreed in a joint communique with our president that the solution should be in accordance with the Security Council resolutions of the United Nations. This is very important. But we all know very well that Erdogan insists in his role in the Eastern Mediterranean and much more, but also in Cyprus, in a position of a two-state solution, as he insists, which is contrary to the Security Council resolutions. But we, at the same time, however we disagree, we believe really that the European Union is a force of change in terms of the status quo in Cyprus, which is unacceptable to us. We need to find a solution in accordance to the Security Council resolutions, but also to the EU acquis communautaire. And I we are happy that the European Union has appointed a special representative, special envoy of the European Union, an ex-commissioner, Han, Austrian, to assist in that effort in parallel with the United Nations, of course. I said before about the Mercosur-India trade agreements that form part of the power of the European Union, replying before with, to Mr. Amendola. I just wanted to add something, that even if this is not really, let's say, accepted horizontally by all, and if that doesn't go forward, if this aspect of trade, the independence of the European Union, we still have tools in the European Union to feel powerful, to resist any pressure from wherever it comes. It's not only this element. Certainly it can help in the war of tariffs, but still there are options of the European Union already, many tools that we could use, of course always if there is a total agreement in the Council, and that's where we come as Cyprus, that we can really play an honest broker role. It's not like Cyprus, and it helps really that we don't have an agenda, let's say, we're so small that everybody understands that we don't have a national agenda that will disturb the balances in there, but we can help in bringing unity and the same approach. To the President, these are really very issues that are very close to our hearts as Cyprus. And what the President said before about, for example, the Pact for the Mediterranean. This is very important. We have to be honest that we have to have a 360 degrees approach in the European Union. There cannot be, there cannot be a distinction between the North and the South, as before. Even in terms of security. Even the northern countries, sometimes they admit that even for Russia, for example, they follow very closely what Russia is doing in the South, in the Mediterranean. There is a very famous, there is a presentation that sometimes is used, that they take the map of Europe and they turn it upside down just to show exactly how the challenges the European Union face are the same, and they are analogous. And I want to stress that because we don't have, at least until now, the same discussion, at least, a debate in the European Union for the challenges of the South. The Vice President, Mr. Formentini, we have worked closely in the past for many other. I come to these issues. Energy. We are talking about the energy. How many of here, even in Italy, know that even the Eastern Mediterranean can really help the diversification of resources, energetic resources from the South? Eni is present in Cyprus. Eni, together with Total, but it's Eni is the operator in 6 out of 9 of our exclusive economic zone blocks in Cyprus. Eni will be the first to exploit the Cypriot natural gas with an agreement even on February, that will be next year, to take the gas to Egypt and then liquefy it there and send it to the European Union and elsewhere. The same goes, there are developments, positive developments in that region that are not really covered, or they are underestimated sometimes. An agreement between Cyprus and Lebanon, it's our third agreement of delimitation of exclusive economic zone, was signed by my president in Lebanon just 1 month and a half ago. That is our third agreement, fully in line with the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. This is an agreement that follows the one we have with Egypt, but also with Israel. And that brings me also to the connectivity. Connectivity is a very important element of this discussion that we are talking about, the Pact of the Mediterranean. The connectivity, even electricity connectivity. Now we're discussing about a cable for electricity between Cyprus and Israel and Greece to connect that in three, in the model of the Eastern pipeline. But this is for a bit more practical and more doable, let's say. Penso anche a Sparkle, the data. We have the cable now in front of us, connecting again Cyprus, Israel, Italy, and Greece. And now we will have another cable that will go even further. I really salute what you mentioned, President, about the letter from France and the co-signature with our Committee of Foreign Affairs in Cyprus about the Pact of the Mediterranean. We really need to involve this Pact of the Mediterranean with the projects that will be presented in April. I said before, and I repeat it, that my President has decided to invite 10 countries, members of the Pact of the Mediterranean, a part of the leaders of the EU, yes, in Cyprus for the informal leaders summit that every presidency has, just to present these projects. And IMEC is one of the most important ones, the connectivity that can be complementary to the Pact of the Mediterranean. Last thing about this, and the Pact of the Mediterranean, it's an initiative that really brings the attention back to the South. Again, as a personal note, the idea behind it at the European level is to involve these countries, the third countries, and I said it to a Commission official once in Brussels 2 months ago when we had it reminds me this effort to involve the third states in order, through these projects, to ameliorate the situation in those countries, their economic development there, so that even we will have a reduction for immigration flows, reminds me, this idea of the connection between the universities, the development economic, reminds me very much of the Mattei plan of Italy. And I think it's really something very important, this attention now. And just to conclude at least this first intervention, if there are no other questions, I am very happy that, you know, from all the institutions here in Italy, all the priorities of Cyprus have been welcomed in a very positive manner. And without changing anything from the continuity from other two members of the trio, Poland and Denmark, but for obvious reasons, the attention was a bit more to the north. For obvious, justified reasons, we will continue. For example, Ukraine will be, again, even from us, supported for principle. It's a principal position for us, but at the same time, we need to bring the South to the forefront of the attention of the European Union. That's, and thank you very much for the words you said before.
Grazie, Ambasciatore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Dear colleagues, I think we can close the meeting, the hearing. Deputy Chair Fomentini would like to take the floor. Thank you very much, Vigna. I would like to underline a number of aspects. Mr. Chair, you mentioned the signature of a call to include parliaments in the management of the Pact for the Mediterranean. In our Foreign Affairs Committee of the Chamber of Deputies, we are carrying out a cycle of hearings on the Pact for the Mediterranean. So it might be a good idea for you to join us against this backdrop. On the southern flank, let me reiterate how pivotal it is. And I'm referring to the defense agreement between Greece, Israel, and Cyprus. And this is very, very important. Having said that, we can close the hearing. And thank you.